Hello everyone, Namaste. Welcome to another edition of the Bharatvaarta Weekly. We're going to run you through the news and events of the week that was. Joining me in conversation, I have Nirav Kanodra and Abhishek Paul, your regular guests on the weekly. Hey Nirav, hey Abhishek, how are you guys doing?
Hey, Carrie.
Hey,
All
Carrie.
good.
Awesome. Good to have you guys on this rather gloomy Sunday morning. I mean, it's been exceptional weather here in Bangalore. It's been raining through the day, and then we have some really pleasant evenings as well. Anyway, I mean, let me stop making non-Bangaloreans jealous of the fantastic weather that we
It's
have.
now a LinkedIn job attraction, right? Like companies are putting Bangalore weather as one of the ways to attract people.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. But yeah, I mean, you should move to Bangalore. But although some of the, I mean, that's a detour that we don't want to explore, right? Well, I mean, lots to discuss this week. Adar Poonawalla had a meeting with the Union Health Minister on the monkeypox vaccine. The CIA drone strike killing Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri, and that marks at the end of one chapter, at least in history. Then China sanctioning US Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her family. Elon Musk and Twitter fighting over India's importance. And the Indians women's cricket team beating England women in the to reach the finals, right? And plenty of updates from the Commonwealth Games as well. So, all right, plenty to talk about. Let's move on to the first piece of news. Serum Institute CEO Adar Poonawalla met Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia. As cases of monkeypox rise in India, Mr. Adar Poonawalla met with the Union Health Minister to talk about the research for a vaccine and the need for it. The meeting between the Serum Institute CEO and the Health Minister comes days after the Indian Council of Medical Research announced an open request for commercial offers for monkeypox vaccine development to protect those most vulnerable. A few weeks ago, he also said that they're exploring the possibility of importing smallpox vaccines in bulk to quote in an emergency situation, and that they're talking to Novavax to see whether there will be a lot of demand or whether in 3 or 4 months it fizzles out. Well, this is a new and interesting development. What do you make of this, Nirav? I mean, are we being, extra precautionary, or I mean, is there,
I think
some reason for fear?
So. I think one is probably like COVID has made us everybody a little more extra precautionary. But so monkeypox is not as contagious as COVID, right? So you need like physical contact and extended physical contact. It's more like a sexually transmitted disease. The big spread happened like from Belgium, where there was a gathering of many, so it was an LGBT fest, and so there was a lot of people, a lot of multiple partners, and that's how it kind of spread out. So, but a good thing is that, see, we have the infrastructure. We have the world's largest vaccine maker. So we have the manufacturing capacity. If they have a JV with, say, Novavax or another research company, or even their own in-house research, from the profits that they've accumulated, this is a good opportunity to come up with a vaccine if required. And also, this is a very big export potential as well, right? So I think it's always better to be forewarned and forearmed, but there is no need to panic for the general population, right? So I think it is still, the total global number of cases were about 28,000 or so. And it is in India, the total cases are less than 10, right? So, and there's been 1 death in India. So definitely, this is not like COVID where you are having 400,000 or 4 lakh cases a day. And the numbers, whatever we've reached, was like really huge. Till the point, I think like probably every Indian probably has gotten COVID and recovered, maybe asymptomatic, but so it's nothing to be really worried about. But like any kind of disease, I think this is a good opportunity. Like we've got the infrastructure, right? So we can use it well. And it is, I would say, proactiveness on part of the Health Minister, Mansukh Mandavia, as well as Serum Institute CEO, Adar Poonawalla. So good thing, but no need to panic.
Yeah, well, that's a positive note. Let's hope it stays that way. Oops. Yeah, so China announces sanctions against Nancy Pelosi following the Taiwan visit. China announced sanctions on US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi over her landmark trip to Taiwan this week, making her the highest-ranking US official designated for penalties by Beijing. China didn't specify what the sanctions entailed, but previous measures have restricted individuals from entering China, Hong Kong, or Macau, or doing business there. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said China had chosen to quote, overreact to Pelosi's trip and use it as a pretext to engage in provocative military activity. I'm not sure if you guys saw this whole Chinese last warning thing that kind of went viral on Twitter, and I got some WhatsApp messages and so on as well, right? Is this some kind of is this something like that? I mean, what do you make of this, Abhishek?
Yeah, so first of all, it's a very interesting thing that Nancy Pelosi chose to visit Taiwan, and she chose to visit against the advice of the White House and the Secretary of State, right? So both President Biden and Secretary Blinken did not want Pelosi to visit, but she went ahead and did the visit anyway. So the speculation regarding that is that she's currently the Speaker of the House, and the chances are that the Democrats will lose the House in November, in the November election. So by January, she's probably going to be out of the post. So this is like some sort of last personal publicity stunt, or you could call it whatever, like her own image building, image defining kind of characteristic visit is what she was trying to do. Now, after that, so while the White House didn't want her to go, once she decided to go, and then the Chinese reacted, then the US had no option but to back her, right? Because it would look very bad if you're not backing your own major politician. And in fact, even the Republicans then stood behind her, right? Saying that, she does have the right to visit, even though it may be foolish for her to visit right now, but she does have the right to visit, and other senior US members of the Congress have visited, even though it's like 20-25 years now. So that's like the background of the visit. And then, as you would recall, her flight became the most tracked flight in the history of where there were people speculating that would China shoot down the flight itself, and then the news came that okay, now she has landed, and then she did her visit and she came back. So obviously, as you said, China has announced sanctions, not yet clear what it means, but anyway, those will be largely symbolic. Apart from that, they have said that they are canceling all or suspending all climate talks with the US, and they are suspending phone calls between Chinese and US defense leaders, and some other naval meetings and things like that, right? They're also suspending cooperation on repatriation of illegal immigrants, etc. So certain other steps the Chinese have taken. I think the Chinese Communist Party has a big meeting scheduled soon, so that's also a background to this, right, with China reacting quite strongly. But yeah, I think a lot of people feel that ultimately Taiwan is going to be one of the big potential flashpoints, right, in the next decade, right? And we don't know what the Chinese Communist Party will do, whether they are ready and geared up to, start a conflict. Pretty much, it is now guaranteed that the US will try to step in and do some sort of military defense of Taiwan if the Chinese go take the military option. So it kind of makes it definitely one of the biggest potential flashpoints that we have across the globe right now.
Yeah. So just
yeah, go on, Nirav.
Yeah, so just adding a bit, right? Like the history between, like, say, China and Taiwan. So till 1945, China was ruled over by Japan, right? Till World War II. Then they got independence. Then, like, there was a kind of a Republican type party like a more center-right party, which was KMT, Kuomintang, which was ruling over big parts of China, but China was in a bit of chaos from 45 to 49. And then 49, when the Communist Party took power, the KMT escaped to the island of Taiwan. And like Taiwan before that, even before under when it was the Ming dynasty ruling, it was controlled by Japan even prior to way before 1905.
Yeah, I think late 19th century is when the Japanese probably took over Taiwan.
Yes. So Taiwan has been a little bit distinct. And then what has happened is Taiwan calls itself Republic of China. And they believe all of China is ruled by them. And China is People's Republic of China. And they believe that Taiwan is a part of them, right?
Yeah.
So there is this kind of an issue. Then under the UN convention, like what is a country? So a nation is defined as, it has to have 4 characteristics. One is a stable or a settled population. 2 is clearly defined geography, boundaries. 3 is its own system of government. And the 4th one, so all these 3 Taiwan has. But the 4th one is ability to have relations with other countries. So what has happened is that since 49, both sides are kind of saying that they are the real China. And Taiwan is not recognized by a lot of countries. A lot of countries, they follow the one China policy, that all of it is one and it is controlled from Beijing. But Taiwan has its own system of government. They have elections, unlike, say, mainland China, which has a communist party and the leader is done by an internal system where internal committee appoints someone. Taiwan actually has democracy and people actually vote out. Tsai Ing-wen, the current leader, is not from KMT but from the other party, which wants more distinct identity and lesser relations with China. And what has happened is US has a policy, what they call a strategic ambiguity, right? Where they kind of say, yes, we follow one China policy, but we do a lot of business with Taiwan. Taiwan is also very critical. They have TSMC, which is the world's #1 maker of the cutting edge semiconductors. So that's a very critical component everywhere. We've had all these semiconductor shortages. Bharatvaarta had a fantastic episode on semiconductors. So this has become a very sensitive issue.
One more interesting trivia I learned just recently is that it was actually the Republic of China which was part of the initial Security Council.
Yes.
In the UN. And then in 1971 or so, there were some backroom deals struck, which brought in the PRC into the Security Council and pushed out the Taiwanese, right? And it seems now the Taiwanese folks can't even enter the United Nations building because of that.
Yes. So that's why it's not recognized as a country. China wasn't recognized like this prior to 71. Then Mao reached out to the West after the whole Cultural Revolution, etc. And Deng Xiaoping actually opened up China to the West, right? And opened global trade. So that is one thing. 2 is you have all these wolf warrior diplomats, and you have the spokesperson Hu Xijin, who is from the People's Daily, which is an English newspaper, but it's kind of the mouthpiece of the Chinese Communist Party. And they were making very snide comments, and they were made it a very big issue that Pelosi can't visit Taiwan without the permission from Beijing. And if she comes in, then Chinese Air Force pilots or Air Force will accompany her plane. There were talks on TikTok, etc., about blowing up her plane. So what has happened is Pelosi went in there. She went in the parliament, spoke with the prime minister, and kind of presented a united front and said, we are kind of supporting Taiwan. She said that though still US is following the one China policy, right? But they recognize Taiwan as one separate unit, and they have a lot of trade relations with Taiwan. So there is some distinction as well. This has put an egg on the face on China, because what China has done is, by raising this issue so much, they've kind of made it such a big deal that anything which has gone against their wishes is seen as a defeat by the local population, right? Because a lot of local population, they're very nationalistic. They are obviously they did not like it, and you saw a lot of social media, a lot of videos, etc. Right? I would say for India, the closest approximation, right, probably is Ilan Umar visited POK, right? And while India voiced its displeasure, but Indians did not make it a very big issue that when she visited, then it's seen as a defeat for India, right? We said that, okay, we do not agree with this. This is a integral part of India, etc. Right? But we didn't make it such a big issue on social media everywhere, and that it naturally died down its death. I'm sure most of our viewers wouldn't know about it, right? So what this has done is Pelosi suddenly has got a flip, and a lot of Americans say that who is China to tell where Americans can go or not? You don't police who goes to your neighbor's house, right? So that is one thing. It kind of gives the Democratic Party a bit of like spine, and maybe some popularity points increases a bit. For China, what it does is it creates another convenient villain. They are suffering from like a dynamic zero COVID policy, and they have like slower growth. They've abandoned their 5.5% GDP growth target. So now they've also got a convenient villain. So I think this works out both ways. China has responded by so they've sanctioned Pelosi, but probably she's not going to do business in China, nor are her grandkids going to go to Shanghai Normal University or Fudan University. And they've kind of said that they'll stop trade with Taiwan on like sand. So China exports sand to Taiwan, and they'll stop imports of citrus fruit and fish, right? But they're keeping on the main thing, which is semiconductors. All iPhones are assembled in China by a Taiwanese company, Foxconn. And now the last flip I want to say for Indian perspective, right? This is a fantastic thing for India, where it tells the world that you're too reliant on China, Chinese exports, Chinese manufacturing. You need to have parallel systems in place. You need to have, you need to diversify away from China. That China can be unreliable. You can have sudden sanctions. You can have sudden stop of talks. You could have certain export bans, and you don't want that. So India, Vietnam, Indonesia, even probably Bangladesh, different things of manufacturing. I think it's a very positive news for the rest of Asian nations, right? Which have like large populations and large poor populations, which can do like a lot of the low-end manufacturing jobs. So I think that's a very positive thing. All in all, what has happened is, I think China, by raising the issue too much, they've kind of like, their bluff has been called. It's a bully's bluff has been called, that they said that they wouldn't allow Pelosi to land, and she's landed and she's left. And they've kind of responded. Maybe this is a very, very Six Sigma event. If this kind of leads to, you know, like a World War III, where China tries to invade Taiwan, then it's like all bets are off the table. We don't know what happens in that case. We don't know. Like, this is like your World War I was started by a Serbian student killing the Prince of Austria, right? So, but I don't think so. I think sensible heads will prevail. We don't think like what Russia did in Ukraine, that they've annexed a part of it. I don't think China would do that, because they have too much to lose if they don't export a lot. So,
but the thing is, it's more like, so my read on China is two things. One is what President Xi, like what he feels his strength is within the party, right? And whether he feels he needs to prove something to the party and the people. And also two, as you said, just like the wolf warrior diplomacy thing, there are also some rogue elements in their military, right? And who want their own power positioning and all that. And so, you know, there is a scenario where some of these rogue elements within the military start off a conflict on their own, right? Even without the blessings of Xi Jinping. And then anything can happen from there. So these are the kind of risks that are there.
You've got Chinese fighter planes going into like through the Taiwan Strait into like Taiwanese waters, like, or Taiwan border, through the midpoint of the Taiwan Strait. You had them like ships encircling Taiwan and warships. And the other aspect is like, for example, what we had, again, I want to draw parallels with India. So you had, say, for example, a plane is shot down, and like one of the pilots lands in like Taiwanese territory, then how is he returned back? Like what we had with Wing Commander Abhinandan. So I think similar things might happen, but I think saner voices most probably will prevail. They might do like a little more grandstanding, but in reality, I feel a bully's bluff has been called, and so probably like things will die down its natural death, and people will move on. Exactly, like in October we have like the transition from the next group of leaders. So Xi Jinping is expected to be the leader, but he also needs a buy-in from all the senior, whatever they call as the party committee. And so basically he needs to consolidate his power, right? So this is also something which is there. And it's kind of a little bit in flux. So let's wait and watch. But I think like actual conflict, hot war is unlikely, but we are stepping into a cold war where you're trying and like moving away from having just one supplier and having too much dependence on China. I think the rest of the world will slowly but steadily drift away from there.
Yeah, great points. I mean, so this is kind of the China's final warning, right? Which we mentioned basically that, that Russian proverb that originated earlier to refer to a warning that carries no real significance or consequences. A couple of things to add here. I'm not sure if you guys follow the Pelosi tracker. It's this thing on Twitter, right, where this guy tracks all of Pelosi's stock market bets and everything, right? All her calls and everything.
Yes, but like that's also a good distraction for her.
And
so Taiwan has been a good distraction from her own accusations of insider trading, right?
Yeah. No, so she did meet the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, right? TSMC, right? To discuss this recently passed CHIPS Act, which provides some $2 billion of federal subsidies for domestic chip factories and all of that.
Yeah.
And incidentally, just recently, she sold some shares of NVIDIA, apparently, right?
Yeah, she bought and then sold.
So yeah, she bought and sold, of course. I mean, it's so crazy, right? I mean, it blows my mind. She's just so fascinating. I mean, she's like, a lot of us don't have that nerve to trade at like, what is it? 30, right? And she's 82, right? I mean, obviously she's not doing it. Someone is doing it on her behalf, but still just the capacity, the mental bandwidth to, straddle all of these things is just remarkable. Also, I'm reminded of what Mr. Nitin Gokhale mentioned on the podcast on Bharatvaarta, right? Sometime back that, October is when their Chinese party national elections are going to happen, and Xi Jinping might actually escalate things internally to sort of precipitate some kind of a warlike situation to get more support, right? And earlier I thought, between India and Taiwan, I thought, India is perhaps more likely, right? I mean, less of a consequence. And I thought, a skirmish with us would be like expected. But then, I mean, now even Taiwan is not off the table, right? I mean, with everything that's happened.
Also, like the local Chinese population doesn't care that much about India or Ladakh or Sikkim, to be fair. As in, for them, like Taiwan is an emotional issue. So,
yeah. All right, in more international news, Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri has been killed in a US drone strike. President Joe Biden announced on Monday that Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri was killed in a US drone strike in Kabul, an operation that he said delivered justice. A Taliban spokesman described the US operation as a clear violation of international principles, but did not mention Zawahiri. US officials mentioned that the operation had a legal basis. The drone strike is the first known US intervention inside Afghanistan since the military pullout last August. And despite the withdrawal, the decades-old war on terror grinds on. Well, I mean, this is, I don't know, I mean, it's the end of one chapter, right? I mean, we used to hear this guy's name quite often, when this whole war on Iraq happened and Afghanistan happened, post 9/11. Right, as the second in command of the Al-Qaeda, famously a doctor and someone who took over after Bin Laden's, passing, right? So I don't know. I mean, I don't see too much of, I don't read too much into this, except for the fact that, I mean, I guess it's some kind of a face-saving for, Biden, right? I mean, especially after the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys make of this?
So one thing is kind of now Al-Qaeda is probably headless. I think whatever the foot soldiers, whatever they had, either they join Taliban or they join ISIS of whatever is left of it. So I think that is one thing. This kind of brings closure to the 9/11 chapter. So this guy kind of was involved in like kind of like the co-mastermind with Osama bin Laden. And so it brings a closure to like in the US, like probably 3,000 people died. I think some 340 odd firefighters, etc. Right. So I think that is one thing. Second is also the distinction want to draw like between Taliban and Al Qaeda. So Taliban, whatever you may make of it, it is running some sort of a government in Afghanistan in Kabul, whereas like Al Qaeda is like classified as a terrorist organization, right? So this is one thing. I actually, in this whole war on terror, I actually sadly believe that what is happening right now, it's like, in the Greek mythology, the mythical animal Hydra. You chop off one head and two new emerge. It's like a sad thing. So yes, maybe you are like chopping off a few heads here and there, but probably this root cause, it might take like a long, it's going to be long drawn out. We are probably seeing clash of civilizations. So this probably goes on. And I think, again, in the US, I think the number one problem actually domestically is inflation. And now kind of like that is leading to like the lower ratings for Biden. People are not that bothered about like the pullout of army from Afghanistan or the shamefulness, what it looked. I think domestic, like Americans probably don't care too much about it. So anyways, this operation kind of says that, oh, we've killed the mastermind of 9/11, which kind of like gives a slight positive feeling or gives closure to some people. But now it's been like 21 years. So probably a little too late, but whatever, I think. And the other thing is this ability of precision drone strikes has probably implications in a much bigger thing in like the whole ISIS region, etc. So we'll have to wait and see. Similarly, we've already got a war going on in between Russia and Ukraine. So even there, so this like drone technology is probably the new Air Force, right? So that's another thing.
Yeah, I don't know who planned this distraction, but I think, Pelosi was a bigger distraction than this, right? Than from inflation or whatever else. Yeah. In more international news, Elon Musk and Twitter are fighting over India's importance and the standoff with the government. Twitter's high-stakes standoff with the Indian government has found a mention in another high-profile legal battle involving Tesla CEO Elon Musk over his termination of a $44 billion deal to acquire the social media firm. Musk said that Twitter initiated risky litigation against the Indian government without obtaining consent, thereby placing the social media firm's third largest market at risk, which constitutes a material breach of the merger agreement. Twitter, however, denied the claims of risks, and India being their third largest market. There is this old gade or saying in Kannada that, Ibbara Jagada Mooranavaniಗೆ Labha, right? Which is, a fight between two people can actually benefit the third. Right. And that's what I see happening with Twitter and Elon Musk, right? I mean, we're getting to see, all of the dirty laundry in public, and whether it's the bots or whether it's their arbitrary, sort of actions and all of those. I think it's good. I think it's good. All of this is being litigated, and I think it's good that, Musk is like taking them to court over all of this stuff, right? Because I mean, we've seen Twitter act like this supranational entity, right? I mean, totally arbitrary, especially among emerging economies, whether it's India or Nigeria and elsewhere. In fact, Twitter had filed a petition with the Karnataka High Court. I think this is what it mentions, right? Blocking some of the orders issued by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, METI, under Section 69A of the IT Act. So, yeah, I mean, it does do these things very arbitrarily, right? I mean, like, I never understood what is the point of staffing, Twitter with hundreds of policy folks, right? I mean, it simply boggled my mind, right? I mean, why do you need that? if you're claiming to be like a platform and infrastructure, like pipes and whatnot, then why do you want to do that? I mean, if you are doing that, then I mean, then you crossed over to the other end, right? Then you have to be accountable, like how you would hold a publisher accountable, right? But Twitter seems to be like doing both, right? I mean, when it's convenient, it says that, hey, I mean, we are just like infrastructure, we're just a platform. And then, when it's not, when in other cases, they say, yeah, I mean, they do take a pretty editorial perspective on a few of these things in terms of what they promote, what they block, and so on. So I think it's really good that all this is, out in the open, it's being litigated. I really feel that this is an inflection point in Twitter's history, right? Because I think Elon Musk is absolutely right. If someone's paying $44 billion, again, the veracity of whether he wanted to go through with the deal or not, I mean, we may differ on that, right? I don't think, maybe he was not serious, but I think it's well within his rights to check if, the bots are 5% as Twitter claims, or 30-35%, right? But one thing I will tell you, it's definitely not 5%, right? I mean, simply the way Twitter said that it was verifying bots did not make absolutely any sense at all, right? So you can't have someone just arbitrarily pull up 100 accounts and say that, hey, 5 out of these 100 accounts seem like bot-like activity. I mean, come on, this is we have to be way more sophisticated than that in 2022, right? In fact, Elon had simply suggested, why don't you just give them a call, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely fishy. And I don't know how this will pan out going further, but it's good. I mean, it's fun to watch this, I think. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, basically, right now, Elon Musk probably is facing some sort of I don't know if it's buyer's regret, but he probably has decided that it's not worth his time and money. There's way too many problems with this company, and fixing it would take too much of a strain, right? And so, just like the bots issue, this is one more issue that he has, where he feels that what Twitter's management has done is not correct, right? And it's taking on India, the Indian government orders, etc. So I think Elon Musk's position has been fairly simple with regard to free speech. He says that free speech is everything, but subject to each country's laws and regulations, right?
Yeah.
And so he may not agree with what the Indian government's acts are, but in India, he will follow that. That's pretty much his simple position. And so, so he feels that a government is in a better position to judge free speech and its boundaries rather than these policy folks sitting in San Francisco, basically, right? So, or Lutyens Delhi, right? So, yeah, I think this is one more episode in this whole saga. I don't know how it ends. Possibly one of the way it ends is that he buys it, but at a much reduced price. Possibly that is one solution that might be that might be possible, but I don't know. Or he might just end up paying some sort of a big fine and walking away, right?
Yeah, either way, I think everything is going to come out in the public, and which is actually good. So, I mean, it's not been functioning as a business per se. I mean, if you think about Twitter, right? I mean, there are so many low-hanging fruits in terms of monetization of product that we keep talking about often, but they don't seem to care about, right? So, and all of this thing, all of this going after governments and whatnot, I mean, it just only proves that they're not really they don't really care about the impact, right? I mean, otherwise, why would you risk that, right? So, all right, moving on to some sporting news. Indian women's cricket team beat England women in the Commonwealth Games 2022. The team beat England by 4 runs to enter the final of the CWG on Saturday. The team won by choking runs in death overs. India faces Australia in the women's T20 cricket final of the ongoing CWG 2022 at Edgbaston in Birmingham on Sunday. Nirav, seems to be an exciting match. What do you make of this?
Yeah. So actually, I think a few years ago, India lost the Cricket World Cup finals to England. So this is kind of like a little bit of a revenge where they beat them in the semis. And also now India will be facing Australia, which was in the same group as India. And India kind of gave up a winning position. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's a nice thing. Also, like cricket has not been traditionally like a sport in the Commonwealth Games. I think men's cricket was there once, but everybody sent their B and C teams because of the international calendar is so packed and that is so commercial sport. But for women's cricket, which is kind of like not as well commercialized yet, it is quite a nice thing. Also, like I personally believe that all these events, right, where you see like more women taking part in sports makes for like an overall healthier society. I think all of us, we are a sports watching nation. We are not that much of a sports playing nation. And hopefully these kind of successes make it change. So best wishes. And like we'll talk more about all the other Commonwealth Games as well. It's been quite a decent performance. And we can talk about like what we are looking forward to. So
so just an update on the Commonwealth Games and how India has performed. The CWT medal tally 2022, Australia is still at the top, followed by England and Canada. The Indian contingent is participating 18th time in the Commonwealth Games and has attained a position of 5 in the medal tally table. So far, India has won 13 gold, 11 silver, and 16 bronze medals. Abhishek, Neera, what are the highlights for you?
Yeah, so India is doing very well in weightlifting and wrestling. These are two of the categories so far that we've won number of gold medals. Among the other ones, there were some surprising ones for me. Like we won a gold medal apparently in lawn bowls. I have no idea how that goes. But
gold for women's and silver for men.
Yeah.
The first time, like kind of like I actually realized this is even a sport.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I think we are going to do well in athletics as well. So the interesting thing this time, as I was reading, is the organizers have removed a couple of categories of sports which India used to be very strong in, which is shooting and archery. And so, I mean, there is always a bit of a debate now as to whether India should at all participate in these Commonwealth Games. There's been some editorials also which have come out that it makes no sense for us to, continue to participate in Commonwealth Games. So anyway, that's a different debate, but obviously, so India's performance has been pretty good in the last 3-4 games, right? I think we had the games in Delhi in 2012 where we finished second on the medals table. I think the last 2 times we were third and fifth. I think this time also we'll probably end up in the 5th position with Australia, England, Canada, and I think New Zealand probably ahead of us. But yeah, a lot of exciting stuff happening. We have some chances for gold in singles or individual badminton. We finished second in the team event, which was well publicized, right? Because after the Thomas Cup win. So the one thing that was people were noting is that how disappointed the team was to get just a silver, which itself shows a change in mindset, right? That everyone now is really gunning for gold, right? And so, yeah, I think in general, overall, the Indian team is doing as per expectation and doing pretty well.
So yeah, few things to watch out for. Badminton singles, as you mentioned, right? We've got we've got 2 Indian guys in the men's semis. So we could have hopefully an all India final. So Shrikant Kidambi and Lakshya Sen. PV Sindhu is in the women's semis for singles. Table tennis, we won the men's team event. That is quite surprising. Squash, we won a bronze medal. In table tennis as well, we've got 2 Indians in 1-1 semi each, right? And sadly, like in women's, Manika Batra did not reach the semis. She crashed out, I think, in the quarters. She was a gold medal winner last time. So that is there. Neeraj Chopra is not there because of an injury. Otherwise, we would have expected one medal, hopefully gold, or if not gold, probably at least silver, what he got in the World Athletics Championship, because the other guy is also from Grenada, which is a Commonwealth nation. And in hockey, I think Indian women lost the semis to Australia, and they'll be playing off for the 4th spot. And in men's hockey, India is, I think, in the finals playing Australia. So
yeah, I think we won against South Africa.
We won against South Africa, and now we are in the finals. So I think it's quite interesting. It's like quite another good thing. I think through like last few things, like the last Olympics, and which we spoke about, as well as like the breadth of sports is also quite nice. See, we are not like a massive sporting nation like Australia, England, or the US, etc. We don't have that much state support. But I would like to shout out for like the Olympic Gold Quest. I think they've done a good job of identifying like the few key talented athletes and given them a lot more resources. So Neeraj Chopra is one of them. We've got like a system, like Gopi Chand's academy, and plus like in badminton, I think what happens is success attracts success. And like, as I said, like, you know, about the women's cricket team, right? If kids who see people doing well in sports, they can think of sports as a career, this gets a lot more popular. I think it's a very positive thing. So another thing I was telling one colleague of mine, an Australian colleague, he was like ribbing at India having such a large population, but so few medals. You look at the per capita income of like the countries ahead of us, right? Australia, England, Canada, New Zealand, right? Those 4 are the ones ahead of us. And they are like maybe 20 times as rich as India, right? So now India, yes, it has advantage of population, but we've got a critical mass. There's a little bit of success. Hopefully, I don't know if the Asian Games go through in Hangzhou. I think in China it's kind of difficult now. But before, we've got like other events, like for example, the Hockey World Cup 2023 in India. We've got, so for the 2024 Olympics, right? We have like a wider contingent. And another special thing, wrestling. India sent 12 contestants, 6 men and 6 women, and everybody at least got a bronze. So that's like 100% hit ratio. So it's very heartening. I think it's quite a nice broad-based performance from like weightlifting. I think Mirabai Channu won the first gold for India. To like
she
team
got
events.
A shout out from Chris Hemsworth as well.
Yes. So it's like quite a nice thing. So
he's
it's
worthy of picking up Thor's hammer now. So.
Absolutely. So that's quite a nice thing. And hopefully in the years to come, right? I think all these athletes, they've been probably practicing for 10 years to get here where they are, right? And hopefully this inspires the next set of athletes that 7, 8, 10 years later, they are on the podium, and we kind of like increase our medal tally and we become a serious sporting nation.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of positivity and optimism for sure, right? I mean, sports is something that takes decades to happen, right? I mean, arguably all of the Indian cricket's success right now could be traced back to that 83 World Cup, right? I mean, and that's what, like 30, 40 years in the making.
Yeah,
right?
so similarly, like our hockey team's performance in the last Olympics, right? I mean, that will inspire a generation that will start competing in 10 years, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah. Look at badminton. I mean, we have a killer badminton lineup right now, and I'm sure, I mean, everything goes back to, Gopi Chand.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Probably like
Fingers crossed we get...
Gopi Chand's impact is like the 1983 of cricket, right? So his next generation is now like 5x, 10x of the type of talent that he had himself, right? So because he was like a lone warrior in his era, but now we have a bigger pool of talent.
Yeah.
So badminton, hopefully we get a men's gold and silver and women's gold. I think that will be like super good.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. Yeah, and plenty of these games as well. The sheer width of these games, right? I mean, javelin and the chess is doing, like, we're doing pretty amazingly well, right? Since Vishwanathan Anand and all. So yeah, really excited for what's to come. On that note, we come to the end of the weekly. We have a lot of exciting episodes lined up. Let me just show you a quick preview of what we have coming up. Okay. So in August, we're calling it the the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav series, right? And we have new episodes on history, economics, and more. The first is an episode that we've talked about a couple of times before. It's the State of the Indian Economy episode with Harsh Madhusudan, author and investor. Harsh has appeared more than a couple of times on Bharatvaarta and is very erudite on these things. Also, his ability to articulate some of these macro concepts in simple ways is really, really phenomenal, right? And I've mentioned this a couple of times on Twitter, and someone replied saying, "Hey, you guys are promoting this way too much. I mean, you should release the episode soon enough." Well, we will release it soon enough this week. I mean, you can expect this episode. And then we're also going to have Sriram Balasubramaniam, who is an economist and author as well. He wrote this book called Kautilyanomics. Nirav spoke to him some time back. Nirav, do you want to give folks a little preview of what to expect?
Yeah, sure. So I think so. Sriram is he's an economist living in the US, and while what he's done is he's read the original Arthashastra in Sanskrit, and he draws parallels, Kautilyanomics, on the economics front. So there's a little bit on like warfare and statecraft. So he's like kind of sidestepped from it, and he says what is relevant. And it's actually quite surprising because he talks about like global trade. Like you talked about like trade with foreign countries, right? That was in that era. You wanted like a strong state. He talks about taxation. The taxation should be just and fair. Talks about the role of the leader is to keep the population happy, even in a monarchy, right? It's not a democracy. So I think he takes all the relevant lessons, what is there, and it is surprisingly for like an open economy, very focused on entrepreneurs, very focused on individual craftsmen selling their things, right? So it's quite surprising, and a lot of these principles are probably timeless. So we compared it with, say, like Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, or like The Prince by Machiavelli, where Kautilya is compared to, but like Arthashastra is not as popular in like business books, right? So it's a very interesting topic. The book also will be released out in mid-August. I am looking forward to reading the whole thing, and so should all our viewers.
Yeah. Another stellar episode, and we're going to have Ami Ganatra as well, who's an author. You've heard her a couple of times on Bharatvaarta, including hosting some of the episodes. She returns with a book called Ramayana Unraveled, where she talks about some of the lesser known facets of Rishi Valmiki's epic Ramayana. I will be talking to her, this week, and again, I'm really looking forward to this. Ramayana, again, very complex characters, and if you look at it in different ways, I mean, you get different perspectives, right? So I am really keen on understanding this. The other one is this episode with Tuhin Sinha and Ambalika, who are authors of The Great Tribal Warriors of Bharat. Again, Tuhin is a very prolific author. He has been on the podcast more than a few times for earlier books of his. Right. So this episode has been recorded with Vivek Khaitan. And again, very symbolic that we're, releasing it in the month of independence. I mean, all very, very nice episodes coming up. Again, as I mentioned before, please rate us, review us on your favorite podcast platforms or on YouTube and so on. So some of these algos can pick up our content and promote us to a wider audience. Thank you so much for your support thus far. We'll keep coming back with fresh and insightful content. So for now, from Nirav, Abhishek, and myself, thank you for keeping us company on this Sunday morning. Hope you have a great week ahead. Thank you. Jai Hind.